November 4th, 2023, a day Pakistani fans will remember for a long, long time. Pakistan has somehow managed to do the unthinkable, helped by rains, for sure. And to talk about this, we have with us today Imran Aslam. How are you doing, Imran?
Good, Faris. How are you?
I'm just still absorbing what we've seen and reacting to it. But before we get into thick of things, why don't you do the 33-second summary of the game before we get started?
Sure. So Pakistan won the toss. They went in with a different 11 to what we've seen. No frontline spinner, attack with four pacers. And they chose to bowl first, which I think was a decision keeping the rain in mind. New Zealand got off to a flyer. They were, I think, 68 for one in 10 overs. And then from there on, between the next 20 overs, they accelerated with both Rachin Ravindra and Williamson going after the bowling. Ended up at 400 with cameos from Santner, Mitchell in the end. Pakistan came in, lost early wicket, and we thought that might be it. But Fakhar had other ideas. Played probably the best World Cup innings by a Pakistani batter ever. Scored a brilliant 100 and took us ahead of the Duckworth-Lewis. Rain came in around 20 over mark. We were ahead of the Duckworth-Lewis. Came back for a 4 over spell in which we put ourselves further ahead of the Duckworth-Lewis, and then we went off the second time. That was it, and we won by 21 runs on Duckworth-Lewis.
That was 47 seconds, but it's worth the extra 25 seconds. But Imran, I think analysis to hota rahega. What's the sentiment and the emotion at this point?
Yeah, obviously, I mean, unbelievable performance, really. Nobody would have expected us to chase down 400. Even nobody would have expected us to win, even if it was a rain-shorted game. Yeah. I felt when New Zealand were all guns blazing that our best shot would be actually a rain-shortened chase. But honestly, the way that Fakhar played, like I said in the summary, I cannot recall a better World Cup innings by a Pakistani batsman over the past, at least all the World Cups I've watched.
It was just unbelievable, right? Because like for me, is this Fakhar's best ever innings? And I don't know the answer because he also played that 100 against India in an ICC final, right? But this has to be up there, if not better, right? Given you were chasing 400, given the stage of his career he's at and the pressure he was in and so on, and just everything everything about this match and this moment, I think just made it, chasing 400. I mean, I don't even know. I'm literally having a hard time reacting still as
I know. Yeah, definitely one of his best ever knocks. I mean, right up there with the Champions Trophy, with the 193 against South Africa, which was also a very big chase. So definitely right up there as one of his best knocks.
And sure. I think the thing with ODI में जो फर्क है T20 से, T20 जो होता है 3 घंटे का मैच होता है, right? So you get into it, you enjoy the highs, you kind of get depressed on the lows, and the game is over before, but ये जो है ना 3 घंटे उन्होंने हमको मैरिनेट किया दिखा के उनकी 400 innings, right? So like emotionally, like the downer it gives you, and people react differently. Some people act like they don't give a whatever. Others, are much more like, oh, we have a chance. But like the journey Pakistani fans have gone through today, from watching them score 300 to all of this, to the rain breaks, to everyone becoming a DLS mathematician, is crazy. But I guess getting into a little bit, right? So let's look at the toss, right? So toss. Pakistan ne jeeta. We obviously chose to bat second, and it's really hard to analyze these decisions without looking into hindsight. But how did you judge this call at that time? A, deciding to chase, and B, getting Hassan for Osama.
Yeah, I think, and again, keeping hindsight aside, I think both of those were the right calls. I felt that in the morning. If you ever have a chance of rain coming in a match, you're always better off batting second, right? That's well known, and we've seen it happen many a times. You have situations like this where you're up against a tough target, a shortened game makes it easier. So I think definitely it was a decision made keeping rain in mind, and it was the right decision. Getting Hassan Ali in for Osama, see, there are two schools of thought, right? One says you got to play horses for courses. The other one says pick your best team. Today, unfortunately, none of our spinners, Osama, Shadab, or Nawaz, are one of our best 5 bowlers in this squad. That's the reality. And I think, again, Babar made the right call by picking what he felt were his 4 best frontline bowlers, supported by the spinners of Iftikhar and Salman Agha. So I think both of them were the right calls. And obviously, it proved to be true later on, not just because of the rain helping us win the game. Also, look at the treatment netted out to Sodhi and Santner. by our batting to just show that, spin went for plenty.
Yeah. I mean, Hassan, I think may have had the best figures other than Mohammad Wasim. Well, not really. I think he started well, but in the end, he was also pretty expensive, I guess. But I guess the point being,
Yeah,
what,
agreed
but
was.
like, but also this is what Osama does in every game anyway, right? So I mean, that way, unless
Exactly.
Osama would have a real exceptional game, he didn't lose out on much. But and in terms of New Zealand, right? So they made 3 changes. They had Williamson come in for Young, who came back as if he never left. Then they had Chapman come in for Neesham. I'm not sure how fit Neesham was. And then they had Ish Saudi coming in for Henry. So how do you see those calls? I guess Williamson is an obvious call. Maybe Chapman too. Saudi probably is the one, right? Because they had the option of Jamieson, who's now in the squad also.
Yeah. So I think, again, Williamson had to walk in the squad as soon as he was fit for sure. Neesham is probably just, as you said, an injury concern. It was an interesting toss-up between Sodhi and Jamieson, but given our record against spin, I think that influenced probably them picking Sodhi. They saw Afghanistan going in the 4 spinners against us, and that worked for them. And also Jamieson, he flew back to New Zealand. He came back to India. I'm not sure, how match ready he was just
Jet
to
lag
come
hua
straight
tha.
into it. So exactly. So that probably played, it's not, it's a long flight to make, right? And you
Yeah.
go back to New Zealand, you play a couple of domestic games there, then you come back to India again. Not sure how ready he was to front up immediately.
Yeah, and I guess we have to, I guess, talk about the chase, right? So we'll talk about our bowling later, but we had a set target of 400, and we lost Imam. Sorry, we lost not Imam. We lost Shafiq
Abdullah Shafiq.
on the score 6 for 1 in 2 overs, and from there, the way Babar and Fakhar, and especially Fakhar, took and we have to talk about this. So in the preview, when you were talking about yesterday, and I think Umar on the preview said this. He said that I'm expecting Babar to come good purely because there'll be Fakhar in the 11. So Fakhar either gives you that head start or he's batting with Babar on the other side. And that really helps Babar because it gives him that time to set up and then explode himself in the end. And it looks like that's how this kind of played out, right? But I think how good was Fakhar, right? Like we saw what happened in the last game. We're like, okay, fine, it's Bangladesh. People, Pakistani fans love to throw in their caveats here and there. But today was all odds stacked against him and he completely tore them apart.
I think just one of the best innings, right? I can probably recall every single 100 by Pakistani batsman, at least from 92 World Cup till now. And I don't remember a better 100 by a Pakistani batsman in a World Cup game than what we saw today. Just unbelievable, really. I mean, he went after everybody, batted out a couple of quiet overs against Bolt, then decided to go after Bolt as well. And the way he took Bolt apart was something you don't see happen very often. We know he can take on spin, The matchup was always in his favor with Sodhi and Santner bowling to a short leg side boundary, one or the other. He takes on spin and he gets it. But I mean, the sixes he hit, even if it was MCG, they were sixes in any ground. Like he was hitting in the second tier. So,
and the talk around the matchup was also that so Ish Sodhi is the better matchup for him, but Glenn Phillips will be the harder one to him, and Babar should take him on. But he welcomed Glenn Phillips with 2 sixes in the first over, and Phillips never recovered from that. So I think clearly, and I guess the assumption about Fakhar is his strong point is mid wicket, and it absolutely is, right? But I think, and so they try to keep the ball a bit outside off stump, but there he was actually really good. He hit a couple of boundaries behind square on the offside, also a couple in the covers, right?
The cut shots he played so good, and he was timing them so well, and effortless cut shots, beautifully placed, perfectly timed, really good.
Yeah. And I thought, I mean, there's a couple of conversations on a couple of WhatsApp groups about how Babar was batting at that time. 400 chase karne, run the ball pe khel raha hai. But my sense was he was probably doing the right thing just about, right? Because Fakhar was batting like no one has batted perhaps in a while. And he was giving him the strike. He was keeping it run a ball and he was pinching those boundaries here and there. So I think Babar was also actually probably the right foil for him at that time.
Yeah, I think Babar played perfect foil. This is probably go down as an underrated innings in my opinion. Because yes, he kept rotating the strike. He didn't get bogged down. He got the odd boundary whenever needed. But most importantly, he hung in there till the rain break, right? In Duckworth Lewis, as everybody knows, if you have the power score depends on the number of wickets you've lost. So we won by 21 runs on Duckworth Lewis. If you were 2 down, you would probably have been just on par. And if you were 3 down, you would have probably lost the game. So Babar just making sure that he didn't lose a wicket there was very, very important. So I think, again, in my view, this will go down as one of an underrated innings by Babar, but it was really the perfect innings, exactly what we needed from him today. So he just played the perfect foil.
And Babar said this in his post-match interview कि मैंने फखर को बोला था कि तू 15 ओवर खेल लेगा तो हम DLS पे आ गए होंगे. Like he had told Fakhar
Yeah.
that actually. So clearly they came in with that mindset.
Yeah, there was calculation going into it that, okay, we bat out, we're there till the 20th over. If rain comes in after the 20th over, we need to be ahead of DLS. So
Yeah,
really,
and
they
to be honest,
calculated it well.
I wasn't probably in my head. I was doing a calculation of where we needed to be at every stage of the innings, even if you're looking to just chase it out in 50 overs, and we were pretty much on track from the 15th over onwards, right? But I guess we have to talk about the moment where the first rain break came. It came at about 20.3 overs. We were 160 for one, and at that point, it looked like okay. So there were two things. One was Pakistan can lose momentum with the bat, but the other thing was a massive reduction could work in our favor. We eventually lost about 9 overs, but it was fascinating to see. And to be when they came back, they kind of left off from where, and that's I think a point where Williamson may have made a mistake, right? So I get that Saudi had to bowl a lot of overs, but given rain was around the corner, he could have bowled one of maybe like Bolt or Saudi or somebody, and had that they not taken that, so we scored 4 runs in that. Sorry, we scored 41 in that 4 over period. Had we lost a wicket and had New Zealand taken maybe like not scored so many, they could have been ahead of DLS in those 4 overs. So I think they missed a trick given that rain was around the corner by bringing a Shodhi at that time. What do you think of that?
Yeah, definitely. So Bolt finished up the over, right? Because they went off in the middle of Bolt's over. I think Bolt had 3 or 4 balls to go when they came back on. Bolt finished off the over. He didn't go for too many. I think just a couple of singles off the over. So at that time, yes. I mean, seeing how that Bolt had gotten off and had bowled a good over, I would have probably thought of bringing Saudi back in. They brought Saudi in. They got 20 runs from that, and we were ahead by 21 runs. So fine margins, tight decisions.
And look, clearly, look, I'm not going to say I'm not biased in this scenario, but when we went off for the second time, in my head, if I had to put money, I would put money on Pakistan, because I feel like by that 40 with the reduced 41 over target, and with after we had scored those 41 runs in those 4 overs, in the way I saw it, I thought Pakistan was ahead in terms of who had more chances of winning the game. And I'm not the only one. Ian Smith Stone clearly was telling you that also.
Yeah. I think definitely we were like, basically after the first rain break, you need 120 of 20 overs. Okay. This batting lineup in a
180
T20
of 20,
game,
sorry.
Exactly, 180 of 20. So this batting lineup in a T20 game, you would bank them to chase down 180 in 20 overs, probably 7 to 8 times out of 10, right? It's a different story. Rizwan and Babar open the innings, but I was saying to somebody that our best T20 batsman is next in, and we're effectively playing a T20 game.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was after the break, 180 to get in 20 overs. I think it was definitely in our favor.
As much as I'm glad from Pakistan's side we got those 2 points, part of me would have liked to see how this game would have played out over 50 overs because of how Fakhar was batting and how Babar. And my sense was, what? Now that Babar has said, once Fakhar goes, Babar is probably he's the way he said he could probably explode towards the end. So, but again, we will never know how that would have played out. But I guess for today, Pakistani fans will happily take those 2 points.
For sure.
I guess before we talk other things, I think we have to talk about what happened in the first half. So clearly, Ravindra and Williamson were incredible. I think they were sitting at about we got the first wicket fairly early. New Zealand lost 68 for 1 in 11 overs, about a run a ball. But I think unlike the Australia game at the same venue, they didn't really go ballistic early on. But I think it was from over 30 to 40 is where they really, I think, went for 85 in those 10 overs. And when the second wicket went down in 34 overs, they were already at 248. So they got another 160, another 150 in the last 15, right? So unlike most games where we do well at the death, here we did not really come back so well at the death. But I mean, it was a pretty disastrous day with the bat, with the ball. Haris Rauf broke Hassan Ali's record for the most expensive Pakistani spell, and Shaheen Afridi broke that record 10 minutes later. He went for 90 and his 10. This is the first game in 23 ODIs where he didn't take a wicket. Given how well Shaheen bowled in the last game, and I get there was a difference in quality of batsmen, how would you look at Shaheen's bowling today?
Yeah, I think not just Shaheen, everybody had, except Wasim, and I think we need to talk about Wasim, but let's come to that later. I think everybody had a completely off day from the get-go. Okay, I mean, see, I don't mind giving away runs of half-decent bowling batsmen playing good shots, right? For example, the first boundary Shaheen got hit off. Okay, Devon Conway, he steps down the pitch and he lofts him over mid-off. You can't do much about that, right? Yeah. Even if the couple of boundaries that Williamson took off Iftikhar, that 6 over extra cover, nothing wrong with the ball at all. You can't do much about it. But after that, we were basically all over the place. If you look at where New Zealand scored their runs, they scored everywhere. They literally scored runs all around the park, which shows you that there was never a period when we were stringing together a set of 5, 6 good balls on a certain line, playing one side of the field of the pitch to the other. There was no clear plan, or if there was a plan, nobody was bowling to their fields. It was completely all over the place. I don't know what went wrong, honestly. Right?
Yeah.
If you look at the way New Zealand innings played out, like you were saying, I think the first 10 overs they got 68 odd. The next 10 overs they actually got like 50 something. So it was very quiet. But then, and in the last 10 they got 90 odd, which is fine. I mean, I can take giving away 90 odd in the last 10, right? But interestingly, they got 80 plus, I think high 80s in both overs 20 to 30 and 30 to 40.
Yeah.
So like those 20 overs, you give away 180, 190 runs. That's just, I mean, unacceptable.
Yeah. And I think here we have to talk, and I agree with you, right? It was just, the bowling was just all over the place. I mean, there's a lot of conversation that Babar ne slip nahi rakhi, etc. But I have to say, I mean, the bowlers are not kids, right? They have to take ownership of their own performance. So sure, Babar could have done a couple of things here and there, but
Babar
generally the bulk of, sorry? The bulk of, but वही तो कह रहा हूँ, I think the bowlers have to take responsibility. These guys have now, 2 of them are playing their second World Cup, right? So it's not like these guys are just starting up. But I think we have to talk about Mohammad Wasim Jr., right? Who's been on a roll. And I think, again, he showed just how good he was. And not just right at the end when the ball was reversing, but even earlier, he did manage to bowl the right areas, keep things tight. And he's the only one. Like when you give, he went for 60 in his 10 overs and got 3 wickets. In a game where 400 is being scored and chased down, he was by far the best bowler on the pitch on either side.
Brilliant bowling, like really, really good. Right? Even I think he came on early on, he got hit for a couple of boundaries, but then he kept things really tight. I think that was the period, right? When I was saying, between overs 11 and 20, they got like 50 or 50 something, less than a run a ball. He was bowling in that period along with Fakhar, and he was keeping it quiet really, really well. Then again, he came on later on when everybody else was getting hit around. He kept it quiet. He picked up wickets. Really, really good. As you said, 60 for 3 in 10 overs in a 400-run game. It's just brilliant, really brilliant.
Yeah, true. And, I guess one of those things, right, where we've spoke about this before, but he was higher in the pecking order than Hassan Ali, obviously, because he's been in the squad for the last year or so. Hassan Ali came into the squad as a replacement, and then at that time, Wasim had a really poor Asia Cup game and two poor warm-up games. Having said that, his record for the last year or so, and the fact he's been around the team, done well in the T20 World Cup, I mean, the question, I guess, becomes, should Hassan Ali have ever gone ahead in the pecking order or not, right? But again, that's a question for another day and one we won't have an answer to. But what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think we talked about this before. I can see the logic in bringing Hassan Ali into the 11 once you're in the squad. He is an experienced bowler. If he comes good in the first couple of games against weaker opposition, if he gets in form, he gets on a roll, he can do well for you in the tournament, right? So similar to what we did with Wahab Riaz in 2019, you got him outside the squad, but you got him in as one of your more experienced bowlers, and he ended up doing well for us in the tournament. So I think I can't fault the logic of bringing Hassan into the team, but I mean, obviously it didn't pay off. So I don't think you can argue with the logic of bringing him into the 11.
I guess moving on to what Pakistan needs to do to qualify from and what New Zealand needs to do. So Pakistan basically, New Zealand, it's simple. If they win the last game against Sri Lanka, so they will probably qualify. For Pakistan, the easy way to do it is, by easy I mean simple to explain, is if Pakistan beats England and somehow Sri Lanka beats New Zealand, the same Sri Lanka that was 50 all out 2 days ago. I guess the other way is if New Zealand beats Sri Lanka and we beat England, then it comes down to NRR. Now, we obviously don't. I guess what's in our favor, the only thing in our favor in this situation is that New Zealand plays Sri Lanka first. So when we go to that game, we will know exactly what we need to win. Having said that, Imran, I think you had some numbers about what we need to do in the game against England to catch up with New Zealand in terms of NRR, assuming their NRR does not improve. But please share that.
Yeah, so it's not an easy one, but obviously we have to do calculations being Pakistani fans. So if we bat first against England and we score 350, we keep England down to 201, our net run rate will be exactly on par with New Zealand's current net run rate. So assuming New Zealand beats Sri Lanka by 1 run, we score 350 against England and we keep them down to 200, we should be through. If you flip it, if England bats first, we keep them down to 250, and we got to chase it in about 25 and a half overs for us to get on par with New Zealand on net run rate. I think both of those scenarios are highly unlikely. I mean, I don't see us chasing 250 against England. Well, we got 225 overs today, so it can happen. But I mean, it's hard to chase 250 against England in 25 overs, or to restrict them to 201 if you end up getting 350.
I mean, to be honest, I think we'll talk about that game later. But my take would be, if you have to go in and need a massive run rate boost, I would probably rather Pakistan chase and go do it that way than the other way around. That's how I would probably want to do it.
Yeah, definitely. But that's always a scenario. If you need net run rate, you need to go into it with the chasing, and then you hope someone plays Kohli-like innings against Sri Lanka.
Yeah, I guess
you remember the match I'm talking about.
Yes, I do. Okay, so I guess we've quickly looking at another game that's happening today. Australia versus England. Australia batted first, made 286. Australia is without Maxwell and without Marsh. So Labuschagne top score was 71. Smith got 44. Green got 47 in the end. And Chris Wokes bowled really well. He got both the openers out early who were in form, so the thing kind of slowed down a little bit. And Australia were about 38 for 2, but then they had a decent 90-run partnership with Smith and Labuschagne. Eventually finished at 286, which I think, so for the record, any team who scored 286 or above, except for two now, has won this game, won the game in the World Cup. So the only two, in fact, Pakistan is the only team against who people have scored more than 285 and lost a game. It happened to Sri Lanka and happened to New Zealand today. As far as England's concerned, they are currently, the game is still underway as we do this. They are 123 for 4. They need 160 with 21 overs to go. And Ben Stokes is still in. With old England, I would have backed them, but the way it's playing right now, I'm not sure who's likely to go. But any thoughts on Imran, how you see this playing out, Imran?
Yeah, I think so. Stokes seems to have batted himself back into some form. So, I mean, you can never count England out if Stokes is batting. New England, Old England, any England, if Stokes is at the crease, especially against Australia, you cannot write England off. So I think if Australia don't get Stokes soon, this game will probably go right down to the wire. But if they get Stokes, that's it. I mean, I don't see anybody else taking them through.
And moving on to the big game coming up tomorrow. So India is taking on South Africa. Those are now the two. So when India played New Zealand, we said those are the two form teams. But now these are definitely the two form teams. The winner of this game is likely to end up topping the table at the end of the league. And I think, I guess before we get started on this, in terms of where the teams are, I think there's some big news coming up where, unfortunately, Hardik Pandya has been ruled out of the tournament, and he won't be taking any further part in the tournament. So I think that's a massive blow for India, even though they've done really well. But I think the balance he provides, probably the best seam all-rounder in the world right now across formats, and I think that'll be a big blow for India. But I think with that, if we start off by looking at the 11s, which we expect the teams to turn up with tomorrow. So I think with India, don't expect them to make a change. I mean, this is a question which I've been putting out there for a while, right? The only potential change is, I personally still feel like Shreyas Iyer is a weakling in that batting lineup, and I would consider bringing Ishan Kishan. Keep in mind, if India want to change anything at this point, they would have to think about whether, if they want to bring somebody in, they don't want to do that in the semi-final. They probably want to do that with a game or two to go. So I would do that, but I think India is probably going to stick to Iyer. And the other potential change would be bringing Ashwin for someone, but you can't really leave out Shami or Siraj. So, Imran, how do you see the 11 shaping up for tomorrow?
I don't think they'll make any change. I mean, losing Pandya is a big loss to them. Really upsets the balance of the side, but I don't see them making a change. I mean, you can argue about just Iyer versus Kishan, but I think they'll go with this 11 probably.
And given that they're playing South Africa, I mean, would you think they're better off going for Ashwin over a seamer, regardless of who that it would be, or no?
Yeah. I mean, right now their seamers are in absolute top form. Right, all three of them are bowling bowling one of the best seam attacks. The best seam attack going around, right? And when you have three guys who are bowling like that, like I said, like we said earlier, you need to pick your best bowler, India's best bowler. So I don't see them making a change. I don't see the need for making a change. Even if it's South Africa, the way Bumrah, Shami, and Siraj have been bowling, I'd stick with them.
Okay. And if you look at South Africa's 11 quickly, so I guess the only question there would be, would you bring in, would you play Shamsi, or would you play for one of the quicks, or how would you line up? Would you bring Shamsi in?
Yeah, so I don't I would go in with both Rabada and Ngidi. I think they had some injury concerns with one of those two in a couple of the last games, but assuming they're all fit, I would go with Rabada, Ngidi, obviously Jansen, and one spinner.
So you will not play Shamsi then, in spite of India's somewhat issues against left-arm wrist spin.
No, I think I would bank on the quicks to deliver for South Africa.
Okay, cool. And how? I mean, this is maybe a silly question, but what do you think East team will choose to do if they win the toss? What should they do?
Where's the game again?
The game is in Kolkata.
Where's the game?
The game is in Kolkata, which is where we played Eden Gardens, where we played Bangladesh.
I think South Africa definitely bat first. India, I mean, they're comfortable chasing, they're good at chasing, but I think they would also want to bat first.
And what do you think South Africa would look to target in the first innings? And what would if they bat first?
And South Africa,
also,
we know it, right?
And also, what would India be comfortable keeping them down to?
See, South Africa, we know it. They come in and they're targeting 350 minimum every game. They're targeting 350, and they would, I think, still be targeting 350. In India's case, if India keeps South Africa down to 320, 310, 320, I think they'd be happy chasing that. For South Africa, given their not so great record at chasing, if they're bowling first, they should be looking to keep India around 200, 300. I don't see South Africa chasing 320 odd against this Indian bowling lineup. Yeah, so South Africa's so far what they've done is in the first 40 overs, they look to go at run a ball, just over run a ball. And then in the last 10, they're looking to get anywhere between 120 to 150 odd runs, right? And that's worked well for them so far, almost every time they've batted first. But I think that's not going to be easy against India. Getting 120 to 150 against this Indian death bowling is not easy. So I think if South Africa has wicket in hands, they need to go harder from maybe 35 odd overs and look to maximize their chances.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating, right? These are the two form teams. Really interested to see how this plays out tomorrow. And of course, South Africa's NRR is slightly better than India. So if they win, and by somewhat of a margin, then South Africa is likely to finish top of the table, provided they win their last game. Having said that, South Africa has to play who they play Afghanistan in the last game, and India has to play the Netherlands. Yeah. And India plays right to in the end, so there is some opportunity for India to catch up if it's not a lot to catch up on. But before we finish up, there's a small matter of the quiz. Now, Imran, when was the last time South Africa beat India in an ODI World Cup?
South Africa beat India. Okay. 2015, India didn't lose any. 2011, I remember the Steyn and Tendulkar century game.
Yes, so you're right. This was a fascinating game where I think India was something like 250 or 240 for one, I think, in the 40th over, and then from there they collapsed to 300. And it's the only game India lost in that World Cup.
Yeah. I remember that match, yeah. Okay, I think Steyn in the end caused a collapse, and they fell through then.
Yes. But good stuff, Imran. It's been a very full show. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Faris. Thank you for having me.
And hopefully we'll have you again at some point in the tournament. In the meantime, if you like what we've spoken about, if you have any views on what India's 11 should be for tomorrow, please leave a comment. If you want to talk about Pakistan's chances, please leave a comment or message us on our social media. Details are all there in the YouTube information. And please like this video, subscribe to our channel. We'll be back tomorrow night after the big India-South Africa game. In the meantime, stay tuned to the shiny side.